Today we're going to be learning about functions and the inputs and outputs of those functions. So first we're going to review a few skills that we should already know. So the first skill that we're going to review is recognizing patterns. So basically, it's pretty simple. We just have to find the missing value in the table. I want you guys to try and do this on your own and then check back to see what your answers are, because this is a past skill that you should know. So pause the video, fill out these 4 blanks, and then come on back. All right, so I put in the missing value in orange. In red, I actually made the expression that explains what happened and how I found my answer. So in the first one, it says that x minus 30 is where I get my answer. Well, for this first one, I did 30 minus 30, which is 0. 40 minus 30 is 10. So I'm trying to relate my x's to my y's. The second one, you should have put in an 80. It's 2 times x, so you just multiply your x value by 2, and that's your answer. Third one, you just add 0.5 to your x value, so we should have gotten 10. And then the fourth one, you should have divided by 3 to get 20. Now, in this next one, we are going to evaluate expressions by just plugging in our numbers. So we've done this before. So the first one, evaluate 2x minus 12 when x equals 5. All you do is substitute in 5 for x. So you have 2 times 5 minus 12. It's all about order of operations. You multiply first. So you have 10 minus 12, which gives you a negative 2. That's your answer. Go ahead and do the next 3 on your own. Do not use a calculator. Use mental math. All right, here are the answers that you should have gotten, all negatives. Just make sure your answers are correct. Now we're going to get into the lesson of relations and functions. So a relation is basically your inputs and your outputs. So your inputs are your x values, and your outputs are your y's. You can see it all up here in this diagram, okay? And your inputs and outputs can also be shown as a mapping diagram, which we see down here in our examples. A relation is just 2 numbers related to each other. So in our examples up here, we have our ordered pairs. So our 0 is related to our 1 is related to our 2 is related to our 4. It's when your input and your outputs put together. So I also want you guys to realize that your inputs are your x values and your outputs are your y's when it comes to our ordered pairs. So in our mapping diagrams, we're going to go down to our examples. It says list the ordered pairs shown in the diagram. Guys, you just have to put your relations together. So I see that this 1 is related to 3, so our first ordered pair is 1, 3. 2 is related to 6, so we have 2, 6. 3 is related to 9, we have 3, 9. And then 4 is related to 12, we have 4, 12. And that's it. So go ahead and do the next 3 on your own. Make sure you actually write the coordinate correctly, which means you have parentheses, commas, all of that. Now, I do want to quickly interject and help you with the second one. So we have 0 goes to 0, but then 2 has 2 outputs, so we will have 2 coordinates. First, the 2 relates to 1, and then the 2 relates to negative 2, and then we have 4 relating to negative 3. So I kind of helped you with that second one. Go ahead and try the next 2, check back and see if your answers are correct. All right, so here are your answers. Just double check, make sure they're correct, and that's it. Now we're going to start talking about what functions are. So functions are a relation that pairs your input with exactly 1 output. So we're going to draw mapping diagrams and make sure that that is the case. If it is the case, then our relation is a function. So I have my inputs that we're going to have, and then my outputs, and I'm just going to write them all. So I'm going to go ahead, my inputs are my x values, so I have my negative 2, and then my output is 2. I have my negative 1, and then I have another 2. I'm not going to repeat it. I have a 0 and a 2, a 1 and a 0, and a 2 and a 0. So let me kind of explain what I did. I have my coordinates, and now I draw my arrows to help show the relation, just like my mapping diagrams above. So we have negative 2 goes to 2, We have -1 goes to 2. You do not need to repeat the number in your outputs. You just have to bring the arrow over there. I have 0 goes to 2. Now I have 1 that goes to 0 and 2 that goes to 0. And that's kind of what the mapping diagram would look like. So let's see if each relation is a function. Each input has to have exactly one output. So I'm looking at my inputs. This one has one output, this one has one, 0 has one, 1 has one, and 2 has one. So because that's the case, yes, this is a function. So I'm going to do the same thing with my second example. So I have my inputs and my outputs. And I'm just going to go ahead and write them all out. So I have -5 to 0, 0 to 0, not going to repeat it, 5 to 0, 5 to 10, and 10 to 10. So I'm not repeating numbers, okay? And now I'm going to draw my arrows. So I have -5 to 0, 0 to 0, that's why I did not repeat it, 5 to 0, 5 to 10, and 10 to 10. Okay, so now I have to see if each input has one output. So my -5 to 0, yes, there's only one arrow coming from it. My 0 to 0 has one arrow. This is where we need to look. My 5 goes to 0 and 10. Because of this case, this is not a function because that input has two outputs. The 5 goes to 0 and 10. So because of that, it is not a function. So now I have C, everything's kind of put together in a table this time. So we have to make sure each input has one output. But I'm seeing a problem here. I have 0 going to two numbers, so that input has two outputs, so no, this is not a function. And then our last one, I have 2 goes to 2.6, 4 to 5.2, 6 to 7.8. Because each input has one output, yes, that is a function. Go ahead and look at these two examples. These are mapping diagrams, and do it yourselves. The second one, this is the fraction of 1/2, just so you know. So check back to your answers when you're done. All right, these are the answers you should have gotten. Each input on my first example had one output. It is okay that 10 has two inputs. That doesn't matter. The fact that the arrows, there's only one going from each input to output works. So 5 has one output, 12 has one output. Now the second example, this is absolutely not a function because 1/2 has 3 outputs. That input has 3 different outputs that come from it. Now we're just going to describe the mapping diagrams that we see by answering the questions that are given. So in the first one it says, is the relation a function? So you're going to be asked that a lot. So let's look. Does each input have exactly one output? So 1 goes to 15, 2 goes to 30, 3 goes to 45, 4 goes to 60. Yes, each input has one output. Then it says describe the pattern of inputs and outputs in the mapping diagram. So what that means is what is going on in this mapping diagram. So the first one, as each input goes up by 1, the output goes up by 15. So you're showing what's going on with the mapping diagram. So we're looking at how our x's are maybe increasing or decreasing. So they're going up by 1. And as that happens, our outputs are going up by 15. So I want you guys to do that to the next example and check back to see if your answers are correct. All right, so you should have gotten that yes, this is a function, and that as each input goes up by 2, the output goes down by 3.